Ron Siegel Radio, your home and mortgage connection.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. But before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guest and repeat offender on Ron Siegel Radio, Franck Bideau. Did I say it right?
You got it right. That's beautiful.
Franck Bideau from Exchange Resources.
Excellent. That's right, Don.
Directly from Brooklyn.
That's right. From Texas, actually.
From Texas.
Yeah.
And you can tell from the accent, he's got that southern accent going. Hey, if you ever have any home or finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you, and you can reach out to me directly. 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990. You're at RonSiegelRadio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan, a plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990. And yes, we're celebrating today. We celebrate every day on Ron Siegel Radio. Today's National Drive-Through Day. You know something? I used to drive through a lot of places. My car had a magnet on there. McDonald's and Del Taco. We would drive through, get a snack. The problem is 1,000-calorie snack does a wonderful job on getting you to 350, 400 pounds. So, you gotta stop that stuff. I did. I've told you I've got on these shots that are doing wonders for myself and my family. So I love that idea. rsrlinks.com/shot. 76 pounds down now. 76 pounds. Something I'm thinking about that. That's more than my grandson weighs. Actually, I have more than either of my grandsons weigh. 76 pounds. Today is also, now you can't get this at the drive-thru, I don't believe. Today's National Tequila Day. And, Franck, are you a tequila guy?
Yeah, I like it.
You like tequila?
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
Well, I'm pretty basic. Maybe the Cuervo Don Julio is pretty good.
Julio? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you shoot or sip?
More like sip, yeah.
That's me too.
I go easy, yes.
I don't. Years ago, you drink to get drunk. I'm old. Now you don't do that as much when you're old. I have some good stuff. Some Comissario Reposada.
Wow.
And stick one ice cube in there to get it a little bit chillier than room temperature. Sip it. I even had. We even bought some of those little tiny sipping glasses. So, National Tequila Day, but don't get it at the drive-thru. We do not promote drinking and driving on Ron Siegel Radio. Let's see what's going on in the markets today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 153 points. The NASDAQ is up 44. S&P 500 is up 17.4. Oil's going the wrong way. It's up 98 cents a barrel. Does that mean that we're getting some good gas prices? Well, it's up a little bit throughout the country, $3.16. I think the last time we talked about it, it was at $3.13. But you know something that
You know better than that.
you're not going to get it at that kind of price in California. $4.48 a gallon is the average here in California. I went to to Costco yesterday, and I think I paid $4.27 was the price at Costco. So, they're usually about as cheap as we can get. I'm looking around, and there's still only 3 states in the union that have gas prices that are over $4 a gallon. Of course, Hawaii, because they ship theirs from California, but they're still cheaper than California. Hawaii, yes, cheaper than getting gasoline in California. And you also look at Washington, $4.38 a gallon. Now, think about this, because I heard this one yesterday. I was at a great seminar from our friend Dr. Bill Janishek. He's a chiropractor here in Yorba Linda, but he also does some somebody studying the brain. And, we were talking about all these different climate change issues. And you think about it, now they're talking about all these things that we can't do anymore because in the name of climate change, and I think all of us want a good, clean climate. But let's think about this. 200 years ago, was the climate cleaner or dirtier than it is today? I submit it was probably cleaner. I wasn't around then, but most of the studies say it was cleaner. They had cows then. Now the climate change people, they're saying, well, you got to get rid of the cows because of the flatulence. Well, what happened back then? You think maybe it's some of the other garbage that we do right now in the name of climate change that maybe the challenge to the climate? I'm going to say probably. Now, I do notice that there is some talk right now that California might wise up. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but they're saying they might relax some of the additive requirements in gasoline in the state of California because all of the oil companies, like many others, are leaving the state. Right? We got these new gas taxes that come in. We've got all of the regulation from doing anything in the state. So we're seeing the oil companies, Valero, they have 12% market share in California. They're saying adios. So what's that going to do to gas prices? Just remember, they taught us this at Chapman College. They still teach it at Chapman University and almost any other place you go of higher education where you're learning about economics. It'd be nice if they started teaching economics back in the high schools again. But there is the number one law of economics. It's called supply and demand. When the supply goes down, if you don't have demand going down, that means prices are going to go up. So we get a Valero leaving the state of California, not going to be pretty for gas prices. Gavin doesn't care because, well, he's probably got somebody else paying for him. Or he has an electric vehicle that he probably charges at the Capitol building. But I don't know those things to be definite. But, you look at the policy. The policies are where the challenge are. I also noticed that out of the new big, beautiful bill, the big, beautiful law, it's no longer a bill, it's a law. They're capping, and I hear this idiot on the news stations frequently talking about young Kim going and voting for the big, beautiful law. And it's going to cuts that are going to go on Medicaid. Well, did you happen to look at the numbers, or do they just talk about this crap and nobody fact checks them? I will. They didn't cut Medicaid. The budget amount for Medicaid actually went up. Now, only in Washington does it mean when you increase the budget, does that call it a cut? But that's the way these commercials make it out, and nobody says anything different. The other part is, I have no problem with forcing able-bodied Americans, not the ones that need social safety nets. We got to help those folks. But able-bodied people that are lazy, sitting on their rear ends watching The View in the morning instead of going to work, go to work. If you don't get Medicaid, Medicare, I don't care. Because many of us have to get up and go to work every day. Don't have a job? I love it. Volunteer for 20 hours a week. It's all very, very simple. And it's just common sense. Yet, that's not what they say on those commercials. Young Kim, where are you retaliating on this stuff? I want to hear it. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, housing market forecast for the rest of 2025. understanding extended care, who pays, who plans, who wins, and 1031 exchanges. What you need to know, unless you want to keep sending money to the Uncle Sam. I like the idea of ways to save our money. I think you're a better steward of your money than Uncle Sam is. So we're going to talk about that as well. You can reach me anytime. Our off-air number, it's 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Your home and mortgage connection.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037, and DRE number 018694452. You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial when you're ready for that next home loan. Geneva's got the programs and the products. You just need to make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, and every day at this time, OPMMI. They provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates with consumers across 35% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They do not tell us points paid, points received, or the APR. They tell us the number you need to put in your mortgage calculator to figure out what your principal and interest payment will be. If you don't have a mortgage calculator, shame on you, because we give it to you free every morning. rsrlinks.com/mobile app. rsrlinks.com/mobile app. You get that calculator for free. What did rates do yesterday? Sorry to say, it was almost a clean sweep. Almost all of them were up. We're looking at conventional 30-year fixed, 6.729. That was up. Jumbo 30-year fixed, 6.759. That was down. FHA 30-year fixed, 6.468. That was up. VA 30-year fixed, 6.334. That was up. USDA 30-year fixed. Rural areas, generally no down payment. That was up. 6.506. The best loan on the market. The Home Select All-in-One loan. And I'll keep on harping on it. I'm an evangelist. That's the best loan on the market for those people that want to be mortgage free in 8 to 10 years in most instances. No extra payments. In fact, your payments drop every month and you don't have any change in your lifestyle, but you have liquidity. And I like liquidity. In fact, one of our favorite words, safety, liquidity, and return. Those are some of our favorites. So if you want that information, I really like that one. Camera's got me off center today. I don't know why it doesn't. Okay, but in any event, let's move right along. What are thoughts about the market? You can get that all the time. rsrlinks.com/HBOD. That's the Household Board of Directors. rsrlinks.com/HBOD. What are the markets doing today? Well, the S&P 500 is up 12.44. We've got the mortgage bond, the 10-year treasury. That one is down, it's up about 2 basis points. That's up at 4.403. The mortgage bond recovered nicely today. It's down 9 basis points, which means interest rates are up ever so slightly. Not enough for you to even worry about it. What's driving it? Well, we got some reports out today. New home sales, measured signed contracts on new homes, rose 0.6% to a 627,000 unit annualized pace. Median home price was reported at $401,800, which appeared to be a big decline of almost 5% from the previous reading of $422,700. The media is likely going to pick this up, and you know that Diana Olick will be the one to give you this bad information.
Such an idiot. Such an
Yeah,
idiot.
so here's the issue. Median home prices mean absolutely nothing. They don't tell you about home values. It tells you about the mix of homes being sold. So the media is likely to pick this up and say there was a big drop in home prices, but remember, that is median or middle priced homes sold. So the mix of sales has a big impact. And when looking at homes that sold, there were 5,000 less homes that sold above 500,000 and 5,000 more homes that sold between 300,000 and 399,000. Because of the mix, the median price was dragged lower. There were 511,000 new homes for sale at the end of June, which is the highest number since 2007. But a lot of that is just air. Only 119,000 are completed and move-in ready, while 121,000 have not even been started and 271,000 are under construction. Go and how would you like to buy that house that hasn't even been started yet? Initial jobless claims. The BLS reported that initial jobless claims measures individuals filing for unemployment benefits for the very first time, fell 4,000 to a very low 217,000. Lowest reading since April after a string of relatively higher figures. Clearly, layoffs remain muted currently. Continuing claims, however, are still elevated. Highest level since 2021. They rose 4,000 to 1.955 million. This was the 9th report in a row where continuing claims were above 1.9 million, while layoffs were lower, as evidenced by the lower initial jobless claims figure. Once a worker is let go, it's clearly harder to find a job because there is less hiring and they're staying on benefits for a longer period of time. That's the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends at Geneva Financial. When you're ready for that next home loan, Geneva's got the programs and the products. You got the phone, make the call, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Every day this week, I've actually spent a significant amount of time on a class talking about how we can save money in taxes, based on, amongst other things, the new big beautiful bill. The law, not a bill anymore. But there are old strategies that we can still use, not old people, old strategies. Franck Bideau is with us. He's from Exchange Resources. He is a trusted partner of Ron Siegel Radio, and talking today about 1031 exchange. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning, Ron. How are you?
Good. So give me an idea. Just give us a high level. What is a 1031 exchange?
So a 1031 exchange allows an investor, someone who owns like a rental property, it can be residential or commercial, right? If the intent is to sell that property and maybe to purchase another investment property, then rather than just selling the property, paying the taxes and be done with it, right? You could sell the property, do what's called a 1031 exchange, which is going to allow that taxpayer to defer the payment of those capital gains taxes, as long as that taxpayer reinvests into another investment property. So to give you an example, adding California, taxes and so forth, if you have like a gain of like $1 million in your investment property, between the federal, state, and the depreciation recapture tax and the Medicare surtax, you're looking at about 35-40%. So if you have a gain, a profit on your investment property about $1 million, you're looking at paying about $350,000-$400,000 in taxes. Well,
that doesn't sound like something I like.
Yeah, exactly. It's not very pretty, right? But if you do a 1031 exchange, then rather than paying that big, tax bill, you can defer that money, but you have to reinvest that money into another investment property, right? So that's the concept. Now, I love our politicians. They talk about the 1031 exchange as being a loophole. Well, do you know how long 1031 exchanges have been around, Ron? Since how long?
I'm guessing 90 years.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah, 1921.
1920. So it's 104 years.
Yeah, 104 years. How do you like that, right? So at first was used to help farmers, move lands, things like that, but it evolved over time, of course. But so it's not a loophole. It's black and white in the federal tax code, right? And actually, politicians again are saying it's cost the federal government money to allow that kind of deferral and things, but actually it creates jobs. every time you sell a property, how many jobs are you creating, right? You
But
hire
the economic impact of
is
the
huge.
sale of real estate on that same, well, if you said $1 million gain, that's probably going to be maybe a $2 million property, whatever. But in any property, we know that the impact is 1.7, right? So if you sell a $1 million property, the economic impact is $1,700,000 for that area. By the time you look at all the professionals involved in the transaction and the fixing up it, the contractors, big impact.
Exactly. It creates jobs, create more opportunities, create more inventory as well, right?
Sure.
We have that housing crisis, for example, in California. By the time you sell a property, it's another opportunity for somebody to get in and,
Now, I'm sure this is a big problem for 1031 as much as it is for everybody else. People that are diligent, they've got a mortgage, it's under 4%. Now, if you go to buy something new, you're looking at market rates. Is that holding people back from that?
It does, but I love that question because people are so just looking at the cash flow on that property, right? Now, of course, if you sell your property tax base is probably pretty low. Okay, your mortgage is very low as well, so you're going to increase all of those costs. Your cash flow might not be as great on the new property, but consider this. Let's say you bought that property 40 years ago for $200,000. It's worth $2 million now, right? So you have a huge increase in equity in that property. Now, let's assume, I'm going to just do a little math here just for the fun of it, right?
Okay.
So let's say that property is generating about, $50,000 in net income, right, every year. Now, when you look at the numbers, you say, I paid $200,000 for that property. I'm getting $50,000 net, cash on that income on that property. It's pretty good, right? But people are not looking at the big picture. They are making $50,000, not on the $200,000 that they have. But if that property is paid free and clear and paid in full, they are making $50,000 on $2 million on a $2 million equity. So if you do the math, what's $50,000 on $2 million? It's not a very good return,
Sure.
right? So if you were to use that equity and maybe add a little bit of leverage, in buying another larger property, then probably you're going to increase your rent. Maybe you're going to get your tenant, upgrade the property, get more units, things like that. So
well, you said something real quick there, Frank, that I want to get back to.
Yep.
So if I have that 2 million, I sell it for market value at 2 million. Do I have to buy another larger property, or can I buy three 700,000 units?
Yeah. So one of the rules of the exchange is you must buy, if you want to defer 100% of the taxes, you must buy equal or greater to what you sell, right? So if you sell for 2 million, then you must buy for at least 2 million, right? Now, yes, you can split that 2 million into maybe 2 or 3 properties.
Okay.
One, or bigger one, depending on what you want to do. But you can go out of state, right? You can maybe find properties with better cash flow, that are less.
Well, so I can go in there and buy 3 $700,000 properties, and do an investor loan where I put 50% down, and when we do the exchange, and what would my depreciation be on? Do I have no depreciation still, or is it based
that's
on the new
another good question, all right? So you're asking, so people are looking at, again, just the cash flow when selling a property, right? They are forgetting, we talked about that already, right? The equity, the return on that equity, right? So that's a major factor. So you'll make that up, I think, on the next property. But let's look at depreciations as well. Now, in residential real estate, you would and you only depreciate investment properties, only the building, not the land, right? But you'll depreciate over a period of 27.5 years. But now, what are depreciations? It's a write-off. It's real money at the end of the year when you file your tax return, right? It's money that you add to the bottom line. If you own that property for more than 27.5 years, you're not depreciating that asset anymore. You're leaving money on the table. Now, if I'm buying a larger property, I can start a new depreciation schedule and start taking those write-offs on that new property. So again, if we do some quick math, let's say, you have a building that is worth 1 million, depreciate over 27.5 years, that's about 36,000 a year in write-offs that you can take. That 36K will go against your passive income on that property, right? So,
I'm
if
going to tell you a new strategy when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio. When we come back, I want to talk to Franck about something I just learned out about the big, beautiful bill, big, beautiful law. Eventually, I'm going to get it right. There's something new in there that we're going to talk to Franck about when we come back. We're also going to talk about the housing market forecast for the rest of 2025 And if we can, understanding extended care, who pays, who plans, and who wins. All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Confused about the home buying process? Or curious how much you really know about buying a home? Take the First Home IQ quiz to test your understanding of buying a home. Created by the nonprofit First Home IQ, this 5-minute quiz will give you a score, what you missed, and why. Take the quiz in 5 minutes at rsrlinks.com/FHIQ and find out what you need to know about buying your first home. That's rsrlinks.com/FHIQ.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Housing market forecast for the rest of 2025. If you've been watching the market, you've likely noticed a few changes already this year. But what's next? From home prices to mortgage rates, here's what the latest expert forecasts suggest for the rest of 2025 and what these shifts could mean for you. Will home prices fall? Many buyers are hoping home prices will come down soon, and recent headlines about prices dipping in some areas are making some people believe it's just a matter of time before there's a bigger drop. But here are the facts. While home price growth is slowing down, that doesn't mean we're headed for a crash, as NAHB explains. That's the National Association of Home Builders. Quote, house price growth slowed, partly due to a decline in demand and an increase in supply. Persistent high mortgage rates and increased inventory combined to ease upward pressure on house prices. These factors signaled a cooling market following rapid gains seen in previous years. But experts say even with that slowdown, prices will still rise this year at the national level. The average of 8 leading forecasters shows prices are expected to go up 1.5% to 2% in 2025. If you're watching us on RonSiegelRadio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk, AM 1490, FM 98.1 video feed, you are seeing a chart. Home prices will rise nationally, just not as fast. 2025 home price forecasts a persistent change. You can see that. That means if you're waiting for a major drop, experts agree that's just not in the cards. And I look at the chart, and I always look toward HPES, the Home Price Expectation Survey, because it gives you a mix of all the best economists around the country. 3% for the remainder of 2025. Those small changes. So keep in mind, some markets are already seeing prices come down slightly. The average dip is just a negative 3.5%. That's a far cry from nearly 20% decline the market experienced during the 2008 crash. But those small changes are easily absorbed when you consider how much home prices have climbed over the past few years. Data from the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, shows prices are up 55% nationally compared to just 5 years ago. The takeaway? Prices are not crashing. They're expected to keep climbing, just not as quickly these days. And some may argue they'll be closer to flat by the end of this year. But again, this is going to vary by market with some locals ups and downs. So lean on a pro to see the latest trends in your area, or you can call us or go right directly. You can go to the horse's mouth and check it out. rsrlinks.com/market report. rsrlinks.com/market report. We get the data on every home that's for sale in the marketplace. You can grab it right there. So that's a biggie for you. Will mortgage rates come down? Another common thought among buyers today is, I'm just going to wait for rates to come down. But is that a smart strategy? According to Yahoo Finance, quote, if you're looking for a substantial interest rate drop in 2025, you'll likely be left waiting. The latest news from the Federal Reserve and other key economic data point towards steady mortgage rates on par with what we see today, unquote. In other words, don't try to time the market or wait for a drop that may not be coming. Most experts say rates will remain in the sixes, and current projections have them settling in the mid 6% range by the end of this year. Again, you've got the chart. By the end of 2025, 6.58 is what the average shows on there. And if you look at the first half of 2026, 6.43. That's if you average Fannie Mae, mortgage bankers, and Wells Fargo. Not a big change from where we are right now. So if you need to move, let's talk about how to make it happen and what you should watch for. Because while rates may not be as low as you want them to be, you don't want to put your needs on the back burner, hoping for something the data shows is not likely to happen. Working with an agent who is keeping an eye on all economic factors that can influence mortgage rates is going to be essential this year. That's because changes in things like inflation and other key drivers could impact how rates move going forward. Takeaway for buyers and sellers: whether you're buying, selling, or thinking about doing both, this market requires strategy, not guesswork. Has anybody ever heard the saying, strategy beats rate always? If you listen to Ron Siegel Radio, I say it all the time. Strategy beats rate always. Prices are still rising nationally, just more slowly. Rates are projected to stay pretty much where they are, so the bigger picture is one of moderation, not meltdown. Bottom line, if you want to make a move, your best bet is to focus on your personal situation, not what the headlines say, and work with a real estate pro who knows how to navigate the shifting conditions in our local market. Let's talk about what's happening in our area to build a plan that works for you. That's the Real-Time Real Estate segment, brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Continuing our conversation, Franck Bideau is with us from Exchange Resources. We're talking about 1031 exchanges, but more importantly, we're talking about saving tax dollars. I like saving tax dollars, and Franck has some strategies for it. So, Franck, we were talking before the break about depreciation. And as a lender, leading a lending team, I love depreciation. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
Right? Because you look at the depreciation and say you write that off your taxes. I look at depreciation and say, as a lender, we get to add it back to income. Right? So it wins both ways.
It's money at the end of it's to the bottom line. It really is.
It is. And you know, if you can pay less taxes, that's mean more money in your pocket. And as a certified liability advisor, we help families build wealth through strategic debt management. This is the whole idea. Not get more money.
Yeah. But you know, that's a concept that people are just looking at cash flow, right? You got to look at the whole picture, the whole return of that property.
So think about this. So, Franck, you tell me if I'm right. I'm looking, cash flow is one part that is immediate every month.
Yeah, that's
right?
important. Of course, that's important. You want a cash flow. You don't want to lose money every month, right?
Then we've got the appreciation of the property.
The appreciation of the property. Now,
Orange County, I looked at 63-year average, 5.3%.
Yep. Now, let's look at, that's a good appreciation, right? So let's say, going back to that example, a $2 million property that you own free and clear, right? Appreciate about 5.5% a year. It's pretty good. The following year, it's going to be worth what? $100,000 more, right?
Sure.
What if you were to buy a $3 million property in the same area, take on a $1 million loan? What's 5% or 5.5% on $3 million? Because you're going to appreciate on the value of the property, not just your equity, right?
Correct.
So the beauty of that math is that you're making money, you're making 5.5% on money that you don't even own on that $1 million you're borrowing, right? So again, that's another factor that can easily offset when you look at the overall return, just the cash flow, right?
And the other part of the cash flow that we don't talk about is April 15th, right? Because if we're depreciating a property, now in the example you used in the last segment, you own it for, you bought it 40 years ago at 200,000. My guess is that's fully depreciated.
Yeah, 27.5 year, you're over that. Right? Even if you bought a property 15 years ago, because of the increase in value in the last 10, 15 years, right? Even a 10-year-old property that you bought 10 years ago, you're probably still losing money on the table. You probably could do a lot better by moving that equity into something.
So our
in
third benefit is going to be we're going to pay less in taxes. Now, I don't give tax advice. I say go to your CPA.
And we
or
don't either.
enrolled
We're not
agent,
CPAs, right? But,
right? Neither one of us are giving tax advice, but we understand enough to know the questions.
yeah. So the question is, would you rather paying, let's say your property is generating like, I don't know, 100,000 a year, right? Net. Would you rather paying what? Taxes on 100,000? Or if you're taking those write-offs, those depreciation write-off, maybe 40,000 a year, right? Would you rather paying taxes on 100K or 60K?
Sure.
Right? That's money to the bottom line right there, right?
Now, one of the things, and again, I know enough to be dangerous,
Mhm.
but I'm going to share it anyway because I want our audience to go and talk to their CPA or enrolled agent. Part of the new big, beautiful law allows for accelerated depreciation of business assets. Now, if you have a short-term rental, that's a business asset. So think about this. You've got a sole proprietorship or a sub S corp, and you're a W-2 earner. And I've got a friend that's in this situation, and he pays about $80,000 to $90,000 a year just in taxes. $80,000 or $90,000 a year in taxes. Go out and buy a property that can be used as a short-term rental. You could probably be looking at about a $400,000, $500,000 property. You can leverage it, borrow to buy it, and you can write that off against your income. And now $80,000 in payments because you were sending it to the government.
Mhm.
Now you're sending it to the mortgage company, right, to pay for that.
It doesn't matter who you're paying.
Right? It doesn't matter who you're paying, but part of the mortgage is always your principal. So you keep it,
Mhm.
right? So now you've got an asset appreciating. When you give it to the government, it's gone. It's history. You don't ever get to see it again. So again, now once you've depreciated that, now you go and you say, Franck, I've got another depreciated property. Can I 1031 this one into another one so we can keep doing it?
You can keep doing it, yeah.
There's no limit to how many times you can do a 1031.
Because you're deferring. If you do an exchange, you're also deferring those appreciation, the recapture, right? So you're deferring that as well.
And then we've got friends who have strategies that can help us.
Now it's going to affect the new property as well, right? I mean, it's
Right.
not because you're exchanging is going to wipe that out. You're going to carry that over onto the next property, right? But
Right. So,
but it adds up at the end
Right.
of the day. Yeah.
so the next property, you get to start depreciating again.
But still keeping in consideration that you're going to carry over the past depreciation schedule from previous
Right.
property. So you're going to add, whatever that
Incremental increase.
above, that extra value you're buying.
Sure, sure. So think about all these different strategies. But, Franck, I don't know if you ever heard me say this. There's one tax code, but there's two tax systems. One tax system is for the informed, one tax system is for the uninformed. Right? And we're trying to help inform people of the tax systems that they're the law. These are all in the law.
Yeah.
They're in the code. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. We're not trying to invent something. We're just trying to educate you that there are strategies out there that can save you money. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. More with Franck Bideau when we come back. Exchange resources, 1031 exchanges. I just had somebody, I was on a call just recently, and I said, you got to talk to Franck because they didn't understand the idea of a reverse 1031. They do them all the time. They understand it. You can reach me again off to our number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the number 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Do you know a homeowner experiencing divorce? Do you know a real estate reference in the divorce decree could cost tens of thousands of dollars? A certified divorce mortgage planning and real estate report could save you thousands of dollars, and it's free from your local certified divorce lending professional. Reach out to Ron today. RonIsMyLender.com. Again, RonIsMyLender.com. Licensed under NMLS 217037, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to lost our video. Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Your Credit Matters segment today being brought to you by rsrlinks.com/debt-free, rsrlinks.com/debt-free. Go and get started. If you're having trouble sleeping because your credit card bills are mounting, you're looking at them and you're saying, you know, I'm never getting out of debt. 22.84% is the average. If you've got a lot of credit card debt, you might be closer to 30%. There are solutions. Whether you've got equity in your home, whether you're renting a home, whether you've got, none of the above, there are solutions if you will take action. You just go to rsrlinks.com/debt-free, fill out a quick survey, and one of our team members will get back to you and see how we can help. rsrlinks.com/debt-free. That's the Your Credit Matters segment, again, brought to you by rsrlinks.com/debt-free. Continuing our conversation, Franck Bideau is with us. Exchange Resources is his company. We've been talking about saving tax dollars by understanding the tax code, and Frank and his team are experts at it. Highly recommend them. We've been talking about 1031 exchanges, and one of the things I hear folks talk about right now, in fact, I was on a call earlier in the week, and this was a topic of conversation, was the issue of, I found a piece of property, but I haven't sold my departing property yet. Can I do a 1031 exchange? And we're going to ask the expert. Franck, can we do that?
And the answer is yes. It's called a reverse exchange. Now most people are familiar with your typical exchange, the delayed exchange. You sell first, you buy later, right?
Right.
Well, with a reverse,
that comes with stress, right? Because
because you have so much time to do that. Yeah, exactly. Now with a reverse exchange, like you mentioned, right, you may find a perfect property and you have a great opportunity. Maybe you're competing with other buyers, right? You don't have to sell your departing property. So the reverse exchange, allows you to do that. Now, of course, you need to have the means to buy the replacement property, but you can buy, and it needs to be set up before you actually go and buy it. So you need to talk to a company like ours to get that set up before you do that. But so you would acquire the new property, and then from that point on, you're going to have some time to sell what you have to sell. It's going to be 6 months to sell, your property. And at the end, when you sell your property that you already own, then the proceeds will go back to you to pay you back for the money you advanced to buy the replacement property. Or if you finance it, a portion of that's going to go back to the lender to pay off that loan, or a portion of the loan.
You can do either one. You can finance it, because one of the big things I think I understand about 1031 is you don't get to put money in your own pocket.
Yeah, you don't want to take money out of the exchange, right? Because that becomes taxable. But as you sell the departing property, right, you're going to have some proceeds, some cash, right? You have to spend that cash. You cannot just put it in your pocket, right?
So let me ask you this so I can understand this. I'm going and buying a new piece of property.
Yep.
I'm taking money out of my pocket to put it into that property as my down payment and financing the balance.
Yep.
Now I sell my departing property, and that had enough for me to pay cash for the new one.
Okay.
Am I allowed to get my down payment?
So you'll be able
back?
to get so you'll be able to get your cash back to the limit that you put in, right?
What I put in, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So you get that back tax free. There's no consequences there. And then if you took a loan, then whatever is left on the cash from the proceeds of that departing property, that will have to go back to the lender to pay off the lender, or that portion of it. Because you're going to spend all of that money. If you keep any of that money, then you're going to be taxed on
But I
it.
get to get my money back, and I just don't get to keep any of the profit.
That's right. Yeah.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
It is, yeah.
And do you have what's the time limits of selling the departing property?
So it's pretty complex, right? But I'm simplifying. But typically from the time you acquire the replacement property, you're going to have 180 days to sell what you have to sell, right? So basically 6 months, right? A little bit less.
So you're going to sell it. You're going to put it on the market with a smart agent that you're going to get from us. We know them all around the country. We've got their report cards. You're going to go to rsrlinks.com/salesmax, rsrlinks.com/salesmax to see how you can maximize the sale price and the speed of getting it done.
Yeah, because you need to sell. You must sell it within 6 months. If you don't, now you don't have to continue with the exchange, right? What's going to happen? You can just, you're going to be out the fee to set that up, but you're going to own 2 properties now, right? You're departing property and a new one, but you're not obligated to sell that property, right?
So you don't have to go to a fire sale.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, but the whole thing is you want to have things lined up. You want to know what the value of the property is, and if you've got a departing property that's worth 800,000, be realistic. Don't try and sell it for $1.5 million.
Yeah.
You're going to be prepared. It's probably not going to work.
You need to do your homework. Absolutely.
Do your homework and know a good qualified agent in the area.
Yep.
Important stuff right there. Right. So again, part of that, and I'm a big believer that great counsel, great guidance does not cost you anything. Right. When you talk to Franck, there's a fee for what he does, but if you do it wrong, it's going to cost you a lot more than I'm guessing though. It's going to cost a lot more than the fee of what you charge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you're gonna have to deal with the IRS. You're gonna have to deal with the franchise tax board, and you have to deal with paying taxes, as opposed to going to Franck and his team and doing it the right way the first time.
Exactly. Now we don't charge a fee to consult, right? I mean, if you call me up and you want to know how everything works and to even see if that your situation would qualify for an exchange, there's no cost to do that. Now, if you want to hire us, of course, you're going to charge.
Sure. And something. If I can save a bunch of money, it's not like I'm giving you all my property.
Yeah.
Right. I'm paying just like I would pay my CPA or my attorney to make sure that I stay compliant and I stay legal. We want to make sure we're legal and compliant with you as well. Give me one other thing that is another big question you get all the time. Put you on the spot here.
Yeah, you put me on the spot here. Yeah,
talk about. You know what I want to really like to understand?
Go ahead.
Days. There's really two important days.
Yeah, so you don't have forever to make all of that happen, right? So in the clock, you have a clock, right? That's going to start when you close escrow on the property you are selling, right? Or the one that you are buying if you do a reverse. But you're going to have a total of 180 days to make the exchange happen. But the first 45 days of the 180 is to identify specifically the property or properties you're intending to purchase, right? Now, it's when that reverse exchange would make sense. In a tight inventory market, the reverse give you a little more time to do all of that, right? But so you really have to follow that schedule very, being very careful and being very strategic and then really planning ahead, right? It's not an afterthought, right? But again, if you have the right team and everything, should fall in place perfectly.
And I'm a big believer in the household board of directors, right? So you've got your lender, you've got your realtor, you've got your attorney and CPA and insurance people. Well, if you're a financial investor, you gotta have the 1031 team at Exchange Resources helping you. Franck is a great resource. If you want to meet him, I know where to find him. Give me a call at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. I'd be happy to put you in touch. And as always, I ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Big thanks to Josh and Sean who are engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990 at ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.